My best friend, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Honor is all mine. Honor is all mine. Been a long time coming, man.
Difficult to quantify that time, isn't it?
Well, lots happened in that time, and we'll cover most of it. But I just want to say, man, I love you so much, and our lives have been so intertwined since about 2002. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you put me through SQT. We contracted together at CIA. You introduced me to my wife. You married us. We've got a lot of history together, man. We've got a lot of history.
A ton.
And you're just such a huge part in me and my family's lives, and our families have become close. And I love Jonna so much and your girls, and I'm just really thankful that you're here, man.
I appreciate that. It's the feeling is mutual for sure, and in deep ways.
And you're the first guest in the new studio.
Number one.
I was really hoping that would happen. But and now it's here. So, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it. Everybody starts off with an introduction. Dave Rutherford, founder of Froglogic Concepts, a motivational training company with clients like Bank of America, UBS, and Merrill Lynch. You expanded into sports and supported Oregon State Baseball's 2018 College World Series win, and developed a leadership program for the Boston Red Sox and Mookie Betts' MVP quest. Former D1 lacrosse player at Penn State, former Navy SEAL, served 8 years in Naval Special Warfare, including a combat deployment to Afghanistan in 2002. CIA contractor who deployed multiple times to high-threat zones like Afghanistan and Pakistan, author of 2 children's books and 1 adult book on self-confidence, hosted the David Rutherford Show under the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Network, husband to Jonna, father of 4 teenage girls. You run a charity focused on operator syndrome, and most importantly, you're a devout Christian. And like I said, this is the most personal interview I'll ever do. And once again, it's just a real honor to have you here, to be the first guest in the new studio. But most importantly, man, like I said, I just love you so much, and our lives are so intertwined, and this is going to be big.
I love you too.
Everybody starts out with a gift.
Fired up.
You got any guesses?
Yeah.
What do you got?
Yeah, I want some full-blown THC gummies. I don't want the legal in 50 states. I want the legit ones.
Awesome. Maybe we'll get the legit ones after, but those are the legit Vigilance Elite gummy bears, made in the USA, legal in all 50 states, unfortunately for you. But you can take those on the plane back to Florida, give them to your girls, and
these things are going in my studio right up there, right next to my desk, man.
Right on, sure. Man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And I got one other gift for you. I personally picked this one.
Oh my God.
Nobody's gotten this yet.
Oh, dude. Oh, you're kidding me.
That is the Sig Sauer 211 GTO. It's Sig Sauer's 2011. Gosh. It's been a long time coming, and I love that thing.
The weight is perfect.
9mm, comes with our updated optic.
Oh my God.
21 in the magazine, plus 1 in the pipe, so 22 rounds.
Wow.
Maybe we can break that bad boy in today.
I think we should.
I think we should.
We should definitely. Can we do the upside down one?
We can do whatever you want.
Yeah. This is beautiful. Thank you, man.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
This is absolutely just a phenomenal gift. Yeah. I need this down in Florida because Florida man's down there. So
the Florida man.
This is beautiful. Thank you.
Have you ever been the Florida man?
You know, I've there's been 1 or 2 stories where you could have called me Florida man for sure. Yeah, for sure. Would you mind if I gave you a gift too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love gifts.
All right.
It's my love language.
What? For sure. I just, sitting in this chair is one, just the magnitude of what you've brought to the industry and what you've brought to so many people in this chair, and what you've given them, and what you have given so many other people, their families and their stories that will live for eternity. And as you said, our lives have been so intertwined that I wanted to give you something that had a representation of that. And so, thank you so much. This piece so my daughter Blair did most of all the pastel work, and then I drew the operator. And up here, this is supposed to be your daughter looking over the horizon where peace is, down into the space where I think all of us are always trying to get, which is to clear out some of that white light that Christ gives us in the midst of hell. And, I remember being in the teams, they always would say, all right, in case of glass, break war, in case of war, break the glass. And so I put a little plaque on the bottom that said, because of war, the soul is broken glass. And our journey has gotten us to this. And I think there's some peace in our lives finally. And it's through our families and through our children and through our faith. And so I want to present this to you, brother.
I love it.
Cool.
I love it.
Man.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. If you notice, he's got a little vigilance, little
I
V
noticed.
tattoo
noticed.
on his arm.
Man, that's really special.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Whose handprints?
That's Blair's. Because it's that touch in the darkness that we're always searching for, that grounding effect of somebody that can get us through that.
Man, I love this.
Yeah, man.
Look damn good here in the studio.
That's what I was hoping you'd say, for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Should we kick it off with a prayer?
I think so.
You want to lead?
No, that's all you, man. This is your house that you built, and I love when you pray over me and with me.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, man.
Jesus, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to interview my best friend. It took a long time for me to talk him into doing this, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity, and also if I could just ask that whatever comes out of this interview, and it's going to get heavy, I know it will, but we just want to bring hope to the world and show that there's a way out of the downward spiral after you leave service. And we also want it to help even farther than that. We want this to bring hope to kids, adults, anybody that's struggling. There's a lot of struggles that Dave has gone through in his life, and he always finds the way out. And I want to use Dave's journey to show everybody that there's a way out. And so please just be with us during this interview and keep us in line. Make sure we're honoring you and spreading the message. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, brother.
All right, we got one more thing, and then we're getting into it.
Okay.
So, got a Patreon. You got a Patreon too, don't you?
Ew, yeah.
And so Patreon's been with us since the very beginning. Actually, before the show even started, when we started it in the attic, then we moved to the garage
I remember those days.
in town, and now we're out here in this beautiful studio, and they're the reason that I get to sit here with you, and that we were able to do this. And so it's turned into quite a community, and one of the things I do is I offer them the opportunity to ask each and every guest a question. I haven't read this one. The team wouldn't let me read it. So this is from Gregory Lawton. Dave, with all the trouble Sean has gotten you into over the years, how is it that you remain friends?
Oh man, that's a great question, Greg. You're a unique person, and that was something that I've always been attracted to. I've always wanted and inspired to surround myself against people that went against the grain or were different. And you've always been that person from the first time I met you, and those wild eyes that you had when you were 19 years old, man. And there's just something different about you. And then when we reconnected in 2010, and just on and on and on, and the closer that you've allowed me to get to you, the more I want to be closer to you. You're the closest thing I have to a brother without being my blood. And so if you were like, hey, let's go, drive these motorcycles through that bar, let's go do this, or let's do that, I'd be like, all right, let's go, and I just, it's easy to be your friend. And it's the hard stuff is wanting to be more in your life, wanting to be with you every day. And, thankfully, we talk regularly, and you listen and you share with me and you help me. And I think when you have that, it's just, you're willing to go to hell and back, or in our case, hopefully we'll get to heaven with each other.
I hope so too, man.
Yeah, man.
Dave, I just want to say thank you, man. And kind of touched on it before when we took our little walk, but when I left, say, contracting, nobody would give me the fucking time of day, man. Nobody would. And I never really understood it. But you were always trying to connect me to people or support what I did. And I just feel like I never gave you the credit or appreciated it to the full capacity of it. And back then, I didn't realize how important connections were and what you were doing. But, as life has moved on, I am very in tune with that. And I know what you were trying to do now. I didn't know at the time, but I did know. I know now. And I just want to say thank you, man.
You're welcome.
So
it's been, like I said, it's just been an honor, watching you grow and watching you become who you are and the impact that you're having on this world. And I just knew it was going to happen. There's just, like I said, there's just something different about you.
a lot of history.
Poof.
Fought together, fought each other several times, introduced me to my wife, married us. You've mentored me, and it's going to be a fucking crazy interview, man.
Yeah, it is.
But so, I want you to think of this as your legacy piece.
Thank you.
Your wife, your daughters, their kids, their kids' kids. This is it.
Yep.
This is your life story.
Thank you.
So we always start off with, where'd you grow up?
Man, I grew up in this beautiful little beach town in southeast Florida called Boca Raton, the mouth of the rat. Yeah.
The mouth of the rat.
Of the rat. we moved there. I was born in Pompano, and my parents had moved down from Michigan a couple years prior, and born in '72, and they moved to Boca in '73, and it was a dream. It was like, I don't even know, 15, 16, 17,000 people in Boca at the time.
It was that small?
Yeah, it was teeny.
Boy, how that town has
I'm
changed.
telling you what, there was nothing past Military Trail, like nothing, and it was wonderful. It was the most idyllic place to grow up, And I mean, I remember by the time I'm 4 or 5 years old, my oldest friend, Richie, we're riding bikes down to the beach and back, and, we're going over to Tommaso's Pizzeria and meeting my other friend, Mark Palermo, over there. And it was you just lived on our old BMX bikes, and we played sports at the local community center. And it was amazing. It was really amazing. So it was just a phenomenal place to grow up.
Brothers?
Older brother, Eric. Yeah. Really a special human being. Yeah, just an amazing, amazing guy. He was my idol, my hero. I think he was the person that really pulled out the artist out of me. You don't know who you are, what talents you have when you're little. And my brother's 5 years older than me, and I just have these vivid memories of sitting around and just drawing with him. And I'd draw my little army men and my X-Wing fighters, and he'd draw these cool animals and, like lions, and he just had this gift, and it was really special. He was just an amazing, amazing guy for me. Up until a point where kind of his life kind of changed. So,
how about your parents? What did they do?
So my father was an attorney. It's funny, when they graduated Michigan, my mom was pregnant. My dad had a job already, worked at a factory, went to law school. Both at the same time. They had a newborn kid. They were just kids themselves. They're, 21, 22 years old. And, it was either my dad's parents had moved out to California, and my mom's parents had moved to South Florida. And my dad got hired by a firm in LA and hired by a firm in Miami. And my mom was just like, I don't want to go out to California. There's too much going on out there. Some of their friends from college had gone out there and struggled. And so they moved to Florida. And, my dad was in the grind. He was a new hire. And so when they decided to leave that and move to Boca, my dad, with a few other guys, started his own little law firm. And he was like, the story is like he was one of 19 lawyers in the Boca bar, and
wow.
It was, this place was teeny, and my mom was amazing. She was a big time tennis player. So, every day in the summers, I'm going to the tennis courts with my mom, and, she's trying to make me love the game, and I'm throwing my racket and I want to play. But like, I was just followed her around everywhere. And, I remember going to the beach club, not what it is now. It used to be just this teeny little thing over on A1A, and, going and eating those creamsicles, right? The orange creamsicles, and swimming races and my brother would win. And it just grew up on the beach and kind of chill. And they were pretty incredible parents. They are still incredible parents. Both of them are 80 now and still live in Boca. And like I said, it was a wonderful experience. My dad worked his butt off. When he was trying to build the firm, he was a 7 days a week guy. I remember as a kid, we would, most dads are taking their kid and they're going to the field or, throwing baseballs or t-ball. My dad's taking me to his office and where he's working on his cases, and he's like, here, take this dictaphone and play with that, And I'm sitting there like, recording stupid messages and crawling underneath his desk. And And then afterwards we'd go do something fun, but it was special because they really cared about their community. That was, I think, of all the things about them as a couple that really made the biggest impact for me was how much they loved where they were from. They loved their community. And, my mom was in the junior league. She's one of the founders of Boca. My dad, God, he was big in the United Way. He was on the hospital board. They ended up starting all kinds of different charities in Boca Raton, and they really loved the community. And I grew up with that, and I was proud. I was really proud to be from Boca Raton. I was proud of my parents. I remember my dad, when we got a little bit older, he started making a little bit more money. He belonged to his first golf club, and poor guy would be like, "Hey, let's go play golf." And I'd go because I love to drive the golf carts, right? And so I'd do donuts on the golf cart, but then I'd whack or whatever and chuck my club in the whatever and just. But he would always, in those moments, that's when my dad, who's a very intense cerebral guy, he's an intellect. My mom's the athlete, right? She was won a couple state championships in tennis when she was a little girl, and really talented athlete. And my dad was the intellect, and we would get on out in the golf course, and he would say things to me like, "David, you should be a Renaissance man," and I'd be like, "I don't know what that means, but sounds kind of cool. Yeah, that sounds good. Well, I'll be a Renaissance man." Or he'd say always be your own boss. And I had no idea what that meant. Or he'd be like, integrity's everything. And he would give me these lessons constantly. I mean, I remember when I was probably 6, 7, or 8 or something like that, on Sundays, he would break out a chessboard, and he'd set up the chessboard, and, he'd put some cassette tape in, some jazz, or, a guy named Thelonious Monk. And I'd be like, "What the hell is this?" And then we'd play chess. And then after that, he'd flip on 60 Minutes, and we would watch 60 Minutes, and he would always say the world's a bigger place than you can imagine. And it's important to understand what's out there. And I think the combination of that wisdom, like be a Renaissance man, but go explore the world, really kind of settled in. And it played a big role in my young adult life. And so they were.
I think it still plays a big role in your life.
I've never stopped. Like that was the defining influence, I think, was to pursue that kind of mentality, to look at the world in that capacity.
Were you competitive as a kid?
Oh, dude.
You're competitive now.
I lived.
Real competitive.
I lived, eat, sleep, and breathe sports. That was it. That was my thing. And it was, flag football, t-ball, soccer, tennis camp, anything that I could compete on a team with. And I just gravitated towards it. And, that ended up really saving me in multiple ways. And in my childhood, for sure, was that escaping into those sports and kind of getting lost into some of the other things that emerged in my childhood. So
saving you from what?
My life was about perfect, really perfect, until I was about 8 or 9 years old. And then my brother, around 13 or 14, started changing.
When he was 13 or 14?
When he was 13, something changed in him, and the household started to change. I mean, and I was just like, "Oh, I guess he's just a teenager. I don't know," and he was an athlete too, and big football player, ended up being, captain of his high school football team and all that. But the house changed, and it really, when he was 15 is when it kind of, I don't want to say it shattered kind of the bubble that that we were living in, but it certainly cracked for sure. At 15, he came out to my parents as gay, and you got to imagine this was 1982 and kind of the height of the AIDS epidemic. There was a real, I don't know, maybe animosity or bigotry. I don't know what the appropriate, but I think most people were just afraid of homosexuality, and they thought if you stood next to a gay person, then you're gay, or you were friends with someone, and I think he was really in this predicament in this small town, came out to my parents, and my parents didn't handle it as best as they could have. They're from, Michigan. My mom's from Muskegon. My dad was from Detroit, and, very conservative growing up. And all of a sudden your 15-year-old son tells you they're gay. What are you supposed to do? And how are you supposed to act? Because there's no playbook for that. I mean, now I think it's so much different. It's so much more accepted and supported, which is wonderful to see, and, people being able to live their lives in that capacity without any type of attacking or like there used to be. I mean, it was pretty harsh back in the day for sure. And so for him to come out and then my parents not being able to know how to embrace it or to get behind him to help navigate, I mean, to live in this space. And in fact, they kind of push back on it in a pretty heavy way. In order, I think their initial concept was to protect me. And so they really kind of mandated that Eric didn't tell me and wasn't able to live openly as gay. And as a result of that, I think he spiraled pretty deeply. And, next thing you know, he was partying pretty hard and really pushing the envelope and going down to Fort Lauderdale. And also remember, this is the age of South Florida in the 80s was
cocaine epidemic.
That's right. And he got consumed in that abyss of where he was and didn't know how to break out and didn't have, had a few people, I think, in high school that were quiet and supported him, this person, Sean, and then eventually this woman, Catherine, who's still friends with today. He met at a drama. He was into theater and, very, wanted to go into theater school and college and wanted to pursue the arts in that capacity too. He's very artistic as well.
How did the household change? I mean, what changed?
The arguments, the yelling, his state of mind. It was just, 1 minute I had my brother there and then the next he was gone. And so it was almost...
You felt like he was gone?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why did you feel like he was gone? Did you understand?
No.
At 8?
No. Well, I didn't know then, but 15 is when it really exploded, is where just the fighting that they would get into and, he wouldn't come home on weekends or his grades would struggle or he and my dad would just go toe to toe over and over and over and over and just screaming. And I just was like, what the hell is going on? And unfortunately for me, I blamed him, which was incredibly difficult. Now after, our relationship has struggled for several decades, many decades, as a result of just me being like, why can't you get squared away? Why can't you fix this? Why can't you bring calm back to our house? And without knowing that it was really about his own frustration and the lie he was being forced to live somewhat. And, for me and him, it almost became non-existent. There was no relationship anymore.
At what age did that happen? At 15?
He was 15 and I was 10.
You were 10 years old?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you guys ever mended that?
I think we're trying. We're really trying a lot harder. I think me going through my divorce was a moment he really stepped in and was there for me in a big way. And so since then, we've really, really tried to work through it. And I also think, the age of my parents now, is another time, when it's like, whoa, they're at the space. And, he lives in New York City with his partner, James. And, there's a gap, and they have very busy, very focused lives. And, he's in the event business, and James is a very successful in the fashion business, and that's their life. And so, as my parents have gotten older, it's like, hey man, I need your help. Cause we live about 2 minutes away from him, and he's been wonderful. And so I think now we're really starting to realize he matured a lot faster than I was, because, after he left home at 18, he moved out to California. He essentially didn't come home. He was done. He was, he had moved out. And the thing that really, I think, triggered his journey in a deep, deep way was when he finally got sober. And he's been sober almost 40 years now. And
40 years?
Yeah, yeah. He just turned 57, and I think he was like 22 or something, like 22, I think.
Wow.
And he's been working on himself. And imagine being in the fashion industry. And he wanted to be a model when he was a kid. It's crazy. I did some child modeling when I was a kid. And
you did child modeling?
Yeah, dude.
For who?
Burger King, Skippy Peanut Butter.
Burger King?
Yeah.
Hold on, I got to hear this shit.
Yeah. Crazy story, man.
How the fuck did you get into modeling?
Dude, me and my buddy Chris were riding our bikes in our neighborhood. I drove by, and this woman in this Cadillac, a Mary Kay Cadillac, screams out, "Come here, honey, get over here." And I'm like, what do you want? And so we go over, and she goes, "Have you ever thought about modeling before?" And I'm like,
could you imagine if that happened today?
No, like you're going to jail, right? And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." She's like, "Where do you live, honey?" And so I, rode the bike, and she drove her car and came over and asked my mom, "I think your son would do pretty good in the modeling industry. I'm doing this fashion show at the Boca Hotel. Do you think he'll want to be in it?" And my mom's like, "Yep." And next thing you know, I'm walking this runway. I don't even know how old I
can't picture you doing this at all.
Dude, it was crazy. It was crazy, because then that led to, she introduced me to an agent down in Miami. Next thing you know, went on all these calls. I started getting these commercials. I'm going down. I mean, my 6th grade year, I think I missed 80 plus days of school going to my modeling and doing.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it was crazy. And for me, initially, it was awesome, because I got out of school. I hated school, right? I'd be back in time for sports, for practice. And I was making pretty good money. So any Star Wars action figure I wanted, or G.I. Joe, I could get it. So we'd drive down. It was hilarious. She'd pick me up from school. We'd go to McDonald's, and then we'd drive down. I'd usually fall asleep. She'd drop me off at some studio in Miami. I'd shoot, a print job or something, and for Burdines or something like that, or go do a Burger King commercial. And my favorite one was Skippy Peanut Butter. I met Annette Funicello from the old Mickey Mouse Club. That was cool. And then we'd come home, and we'd always stop. And initially we'd stop at toy stores, and I loved action figures, right? And then, or she'd stop eventually then it became the Army surplus store. There was one in Fort Lauderdale. And when I started, becoming fascinated with John Wayne and war movies, probably I was like 8 or 9 years old. And then I'd stop and I'd get a ninja outfit or some throwing stars. And, back then you could only get them in these Army surplus stores. And it got to the point one time I was, the closest I got to really kind of being really successful was I was in the final. There was a movie called Cocoon back in the day. And I got to the final as me and the kid who actually went in the movie. And he got the role and, shot this huge movie. And, it was about like alien forces and stuff. And, it was cool. But right after that, it became, I became a preteen and a teen. And
it became uncomfortable at that point, and I didn't want to do it. I just
Why did it become uncomfortable?
I felt like I was missing out on my friends and hanging out with them, and I didn't like it. I got frustrated with it. Even though you're making money, like I'd rather be in school, get out of school, go to practice, play in my teams, and it was problematic. And then also, like, when you go on, and anybody who's been in any component of the industry, like, there's nothing glamorous about it. You're sitting and they pin your clothes and you have to sit still for 5 hours while they shoot all the shoots and get all the shots they want. And I just got to the point, I was like, Mom, I hate this. I don't want to do it anymore. And then that was it. And so I stopped. But yeah, that was right around probably 13, 14 is when I was like, I'm done. But it was incredible because, we went through a really, my dad's law firm kind of imploded when I was graduating, when I was a senior in school. And so out of nowhere, I ended up, I wanted to do a 5th year of high school. And so all that money I had saved up I was able to pay for a portion of that experience. And so, it goes back to that idea that you go through these things at certain times and you're not sure what it's going to mean or how it's going to affect you, but it's going to affect you. And I think understanding that the lesson isn't immediate, like that's when that stuff started, in particular with my brother. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't get it. I didn't understand why he didn't want to be around me. And as a result of that, that's when I really leaned in and started to realize that I wasn't going to get what normal brothers give each other. And so I had to go find it. And probably around, it was like 13, 14 where I kind of figured that out. And so I really developed strong, intense relationships with my friends. And, Richie was one, Chris in middle school and high school, another Chris in high school. And they became my brothers. And that was meaningful for me because I didn't have a sibling. Once he left in 85, he was gone. And he'd come home occasionally, but it wasn't like, oh, hey, Eric, let's go hang out and do things. And then, yeah, so it was, you're in 1 minute, you're in this idyllic world, and then the next, there's chaos around you. And so for me, the way I managed that was I just dove into my athletics and really was like, this is it. This is what's going to save me. And so it was essentially football, and lacrosse became everything to me, especially football.
I've spent years on this show pulling back the curtain and trying to reveal what's really happening in this country. And the truth is, there's a double standard here in America. You see time and time again, people defending themselves, defending their family, and then the judicial system goes after them. It's a double standard. And if you don't believe me, check out episode number 3 with Don Bradley. That is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Because it's not just about what you did, believe it or not, it's how the legal system interprets it. And that's why I'm a USCCA member. The USCCA has over 860,000 members because they know the reality is, after you stop the threat, the real fight begins. Your membership gives you the education, elite training, and self-defense liability insurance you need for the second fight, the legal one. Plus, every member also gets access to a 24/7 critical response team and attorney network in the event of a self-defense incident. Violent crime happens too often in America. This isn't about living in fear. This is about being prepared when things go sideways. You don't get to schedule danger, and with the world changing so fast, you have to do what you can to protect your family. Check out the USCCA's risk-free membership at uscca.com/SRS. That's uscca.com/SRS. Protect more than just your life. Protect your future. Go right now to uscca.com/SRS. It's no secret precious metals like gold and silver are gaining traction. From the billionaires to the central banks who are stockpiling gold to the growing use of silver for artificial intelligence, the demand is rising. But how should you buy precious metals? Where do you start? And who should you buy from? Well, I was relieved to find a great company I can trust, and that company is Goldco. They are top rated and keep it simple and transparent. They're an award-winning organization with over 7,000 five-star reviews, and they've got the best free silver offer out there. So if you're ready to learn how Goldco can help you, call 855-936-GOLD or visit SeanLikesGold.com. You'll get a free 2025 gold and silver kit, plus you'll also learn about how you could qualify for the #1 silver offer out there. So give Goldco a call at 855-936-GOLD or visit SeanLikesGold.com. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Why do you think you and your brother Eric haven't mended things up 100% by now?
That's a great
It's
question.
been over 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you hold resentment?
No, not anymore. I think once John has been amazing. For me, it was like, what did I do? I think that was what it was for many, many years. I mean, and listen, we couldn't be more diametrically different, right? Right. He's in the fashion industry. I was a Navy SEAL, right? He's gay. I'm not, right? He, is an activist. And, I do almost a political show for, the right. And so I think that separation, and then, obviously when I went into college, I did not mature. My emotional intelligence was pretty shown. We can talk about that. And then in the teams, it was even more complicated because I was in San Diego almost the whole time, and he was up in LA. And I think we saw each other in the 7 years I was in San Diego. I think we saw each other 6 times. And he never once came to visit me. I was always driving up there. And the one time he was in San Diego, it was kind of crazy story with Charlie and Rick, and it was a Super Bowl thing that went haywire. Maybe that's for a different show, but
Let's hear it.
right now,
Yeah.
oh God, this is definitely a right turn right now. It was Super Bowl in San Diego. What was it? 2002.
Are you talking Charlie Melton?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And Rick Slater.
Oh boy.
And
It's gonna
so
get good.
you wanted the whole story?
Yeah, man.
I was the combat deployment happened that summer, was really struggling from that, really struggling period. Went home over Christmas, got engaged, came back, and my brother is an event planner. He's one of the biggest. He works for one of the biggest companies in the world, and he is the man. Like he put if there's a New York premiere for F1 to Brad Pittman, he did that. He ran the whole thing. Like he's amazing at what he does. He's got so many gifts, and so he was an event planner back then, and he was working for the NFL Experience. And so he called me. He's like, "Hey man, we're going to be in town." And these are like massive black tie parties. And they were going to have it on Miramar Air Base, right? Kind of fuse it in. The war had just been going on for a year and they wanted to commingle, and it was in San Diego. And so he's like, "Hey, do you want to go to this thing?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do." And I forget when this was like, I think he called me it was almost that Friday, and Charlie and I had started a bender that Friday, and I think it was Saturday night. We drank pretty much all through the night. Next morning, woke up, started going, and I don't know how Rick came over, and I'm like, "Hey man, you want to go?" And he's like, "Yup." And next thing you know, it's the three of us. So I mean, Charlie's 6'5", 6'6", 265, 270, right? Rick was 6'3", 235, and me, and we go to this thing, and we actually put a button-down shirt on, and we go in and we're early. We go on base. We go right to the bar and just start getting after it, right? Getting after it. Well, I'm the guy who's always kind of trying to stir the pot. And so I'm looking around. I see these guys over here, and I walk up and say, hey, how you guys doing? What's up? And you want to have a drink with us? And they're like, yeah, come over. And this guy, I'm talking to him, and then he runs small venues, like little stadiums, like little soccer stadiums or whatever. And I forget where he ran them, and then he had his head of security guy there with him. And I'm talking to him, and the other security guy was over with Charlie and Rick at the bar. And the guy tells me, oh yeah, he's a Vietnam vet. And I was like, no, that's awesome. That's really cool. And he's like, are you guys in? Like, yeah, we're in the Navy. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, he was a Navy SEAL in Vietnam. And I'm like, get out of here. Are you kidding me? I was like, yeah. So I immediately go right over to the bar. I'm like, hey, dude, I heard you're a SEAL and you were in Vietnam. He's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, what BUD/S class were you in? And he was like, wow, it's top secret. And
shit.
And so it starts, right? And I'm like, oh man, that's cool. I go, so tell me, some stories, and I was like, and these guys weren't in it yet because I didn't want to, I had to build it up, right? And this was back in the different days of my, what fascinated me, right? And he ends up telling me all these stories, how he did the secret stuff in the Laos and Cambodia. And I'm just like, this is really cool. But then I ask him a couple quantifying questions, and like, do you know Rudy Bosch? And that's right, when Survivor was on. So it was the biggest TV show. Rudy's a legend, right? He's one of the most famous Navy SEALs ever. And he's like, nope, never heard of him. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, hey, come over and meet my buddies, and it's like, I want to tell them about your stuff. So I brought them over. They're 3 sheets to the wind. And I come over, and now I'm like, hey, and I start telling him, and Rick looks over and he goes, do you know Master Chief Gallagher? Another legend, Team 2 legend in the teams, like the man, right? I got a chance to meet him at one of the reunions down at Chief Watson Patches has this little marina down by the museum, and got to meet Master Chief Gallagher. And it was the coolest thing ever. These Vietnam guys just sitting around and shooting the shit. And he's like, no, never heard of him. And Rick's like, get over here, pulls him in, gets in his face, and is like, you're fucking lying right now. And we know you're lying. So you're going to drink until I tell you, you can go. And so we're just, Charlie's just like, boom, boom, boom. And then, then he's, then I forget who it was. He like finally is like, I'm out of here, and like bolts. And the guy, like, they disappear. And so now we're laughing and just, slamming. Next thing I know, I go over and I don't know, I got a cigar or something. I don't know how. And I see my brother beelining towards me, and he looks pissed. And he's got some woman with him, and he's like, get over here. And so they take me behind the curtains. They're like, this woman, like, did you threaten these people who paid money to go here with your drunk friends? You got to get out of here right now. And I'm like, I didn't do what, and Eric's like just shaking his head like, you idiot. What are you doing to me? Right. This is my job. You just threatened somebody. And I'm like, I didn't say, and we come out and the Marine MPs are there. And there's like 10 of them, right? Because they heard there was SEALs, right? And they're going to overwhelm in force. And so they're like, all right, gents, you, and you. And the 3 of us got escorted off Miramar base and barely got away with almost destroying my brother's, his event. So yeah, that was, but anyways, going back to the relationship. You know how you get into those moments where you're not sure what the solution is, and you kind of dig into a state of mind, or you dig in more so into a state of emotion, and you lock that emotion in, whether you're protecting yourself or you're trying to rationalize your behavior because it doesn't feel right, but you don't want to back down because of how hurt you've been or how wrong you are or whatever the context for your shame. And I suppose I couldn't get out of that. I suppose I was probably,
You felt shame.
yeah, as I got older, for sure,
What did you feel shame about?
that I wasn't there for him, that I couldn't help him, that nobody gave me the opportunity to be like, Eric, I don't care if you're gay. Like, you're still my brother. I love you. How can I help you? I mean, there were several times. I mean, he didn't even tell me until I was in college and he was older. Like, we sat down one time. He's like, I'm gay, right? And I was like, I didn't know, but I assumed. And I had gotten into a couple fights with my friends who had said something when I was in high school, when I was older. Like, well, yeah, at least my brother's not gay or whatever that is. And got into it a couple times with friends as a result of it. And, that shame of not being able to support him, not being able to be there for him. And then, over a while, because I wanted his love, I wanted a relationship. I didn't know how to process the entirety of those emotions in a way that what you're freed from that shackle of shame.
What would you say to him right now?
Oh, that I love him dearly, and that I'm proud of him, and that I admire him, and that I'm grateful that we're close. We were just up in New York, and I had an event up there for my firm, and we decided, and this was after we'd spent a week in Maine with all of Jana's family, her immediate family. It was like 18 of us, right? Wonderful, amazing people, and I'll talk about them later. And so I had this event, and so Jana was, well, why don't we go to New York and see, Eric and James? And I was like, yes, absolutely. And he's just so good with the kids and so caring for us, and he gives us so much. And this is a guy that's moving at 1,000 miles an hour. I mean, he's putting on, they're spending $1 million on these premieres, and he's running the whole thing, and so constantly grinding. But he makes the time, and he comes, and he goes to lunch with us, and he has dinner with us, and so we were able to celebrate my birthday dinner up there, and just I think it's the presence that I think I want more of, just to be with him, near him, and just so we can sit in that long space to try and fill it in, I think. And so I love him, and I'm looking forward to our relationship growing stronger and stronger and stronger, and in particular just being in a space where we can rely on each other. That would be the dream.
I hope that happens, man.
Yeah, me too.
Let's move on.
All right.
What got you interested in the military?
Oh my God.
Actually, you went to school first.
I did. I went to
D1.
4 years of college. The jump from 17 to 23 or 22 was really intense. It's where my world really collapsed for the second time. My dream had always been to play Division I football. Like, I was the guy. I went to, quarterback camps up in Indiana every summer. University of Michigan football camp. I loved it. Everything about the game for me is just makes sense. I love the camaraderie. I love the tactics. I love the arduousness of it. I love the pain that you feel. I love the competition of it, right? The grittier team wins, the closer team wins. And that's really, I think, what shaped who I am fundamentally the most, was that sense of camaraderie that exists within a close team. And so, but my senior year, we went 0-10. We didn't win a damn game. In fact, my last game against our arch rivals, I can't believe I'm openly talking about this on your show, but I think we got beat like 64-0. And they knocked me out of the game twice, like hit me so hard on a blind side, cracked my helmet open. And I mean, it was, the culmination of my whole childhood focus on football, came collapsing down in an 0-10 season. And that really put me into a panic. And it was a guy at school at St. Andrews who, his name was Gary Niels. He's probably one of the most significant influences I've had in my life as a young man. He was the MVP of the 1977 NCAA Division I lacrosse championship. He was a goalie for Maryland, and he had come down from a school up north, and he was my assistant lacrosse coach, and he was the dean of students. And I just looked up to him, and I think he had brought it up to me. It was just like, listen, there's this thing called the postgraduate year. And a lot of guys up in the Northeast, you can do this 5th year of school. You grow older, you get stronger, you play another year of sports, you get another year of high school, and then you go to a better school or bigger school. And so I brought this up. My parents were like, do you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, if it gives me an opportunity to be able to play in college. And so I applied to like six different schools up in, from New Jersey up to New England, and ended up getting accepted at Choate Rosemary Hall in Connecticut. And it was fantastic because the quarterback, he was like, yep, love you, coming up. We're going to throw the ball 45 times a game. Absolutely awesome. And it was amazing. And also too, because in the spring we had won a state championship in lacrosse, and I was, the top player in the team. I ended up being the Florida representative to the national all-star game for lacrosse. Now, just to clarify it, that was not a big deal back then because Florida had like 18 teams, right? And I remember I was on the West team and there was 9 midi lines, right? And I was a midfielder. And I was on the 9th midi line with the guy from California and the guy from Colorado. So, it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was still, I was able to take that accolade, transfer it into this next evolution of my athletic career, which was to go to Choate. And I remember showing up in August, and I was so excited. I was like, this is my shot. I'm going to go to this great school. I'm going to get it, recruited by a D1 school. It's going to be amazing. And I remember showing up first day, and we're doing our tests and strength stuff. And I look over at this guy next to me, and I said, hey, how you doing? I'm David. What's your name? He's like, Mike. And he's like, I'm like, what position you play? And he's like, quarterback. And he goes, what position do you play? And I go, quarterback. And this dude had recruited 2 of us, and we both showed up. And so everything was shot in that moment. And it's like, dude, coach, you just told me I was the guy. That's why I came to this school. That's why we're paying this insane amount of money to go to the school so I can come here and throw the ball. And I don't know what it was. We had a really solid team, a lot of great guys, Kirby and we had like 9 postgraduates, and Brian Lonsinger was our captain, and all these amazing human beings, really special guys. And so Mike and I looked at each other and said, hey, do you want to go for it? And he's like, yeah. And so we just split time the whole year, and we went undefeated. We were one of the best teams at that time in Choate's entire 112-year history. And we were beating teams by like 50. And we won the championship of that big school, and it was incredible. And I was riding this huge high and was getting some looks and was getting some smaller colleges, and then lacrosse came. I played basketball and then played lacrosse, and we run a championship in lacrosse too. But no big D1 offers came in other than for lacrosse. And it was one for UMass and then one for Penn State. And the reason I got the Penn State offer was, again, because of Gary Neals. He had sent a letter to Glenn Thiel, who was the head coach at Penn State, and said, hey, this guy's not from, Philly. He's not from Long Island. He's not from Maryland, upstate New York. But he's a really good athlete. And if you give him a shot, he'll make you proud. And so he put his reputation on the line for me. And I went on a recruiting trip to UMass, and I went on a recruiting trip to Penn State, and it wasn't even a choice. And so I chose to go to Penn State. And it was a funny start, because when I showed up, my whole intention was I was going to try and walk on the football team. I had created this illusion that I could play at Penn State, right? From the time I was a little kid, when I was little, it was like, all right, go to University of Michigan, win the Heisman, then go play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're a kid, and you just, you're, it's not like it is today where there's max preps and there's every single stat and they rank everybody's 5-star, blue chips, 4-star, 3, like, it wasn't like that. And so I had conjured up this illusion that I was a lot better than I actually was. And so I said, all right, I'm going to go to Penn State and I'm going to walk on. And we showed up in like August, and my roommate was still one of my closest friends this day, Mike O'Keefe, who I just loved dearly. It was like a godsend that he was my roommate. He was an All-American from Baltimore, and we were in freshman study hall class, and it was all the athletes. And he's like, hey, man, I think you need to go tell the new freshman quarterback you're going to take his job. And I was like, yeah, man, where is he? And there was this dude in the front row that was the biggest human being I've ever seen. And it was a guy named Kerry Collins. And Kerry was the #1 recruited quarterback in the country. And he was like 6'5", 255, had an 80-yard ball. And he was just, I've never seen anything like it. And kind of in that moment, my whole world shattered, because the illusion that I had created of who I thought I was untrue. I was 6 foot, 160 pounds, soaking wet. I did have a strong arm, and probably I could have handled the complexity of a D1 program, but physically I was nowhere. I might have been a decent D3 quarterback, maybe. And so all of that dream, that 10 plus years of wanting to play football in college, just collapsed. It just went away. And immediately I started to collapse emotionally.
How so?
Because the alternative was to, all right, I've got this opportunity as a lacrosse player. I'm going to move in, and I'm going to be really good there. But like I said, my roommate was an All-American from Baltimore. Like, our freshman class, these people were phenomenal players. From Towson, there was Grant and Brian and Mike and Hank and JT. Like, Mike Buzza, my other close friend, and there's a cool story about Mike and Mike. They actually came to my Bud's graduation. Like, Mike Buzza was on the under 19 all-world team from Philly, and these guys, they could do things with their stick I couldn't even dream of. And so I had a little bit earlier started as a way to manage kind of my frustrations and my fears, because my fears really began to emerge when that whole stuff started going down with Eric. I think my insecurity really began to blossom.